взвесе, там вонище стоит невъебенное. Вот. Уже пока, блядь, вот я вот так вторые сутки уже хожу, блядь, Даш ищу.
Russia can mobilize for war on a scale comparable to the Soviet Union during World War II if necessary, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said. If a great country needs to stand up, it will stand up at any moment. No one can have any doubts, Peskov said during a lecture at the Victory Museum in Moscow. He claimed that millions of Russians are already assisting the military effort against Ukraine by collecting aid, sending equipment and ammunition to the front line with personal funds, and weaving camouflage nets. Somewhere around 30 million Soviet people gave their lives in the fight against fascism, he added. Peskov's comments come as Russian authorities recruit 30,000 to 40,000 people into the army each month. Sources familiar with US and EU intelligence told the Wall Street Journal. Instead of formal conscription, the Kremlin has leaned on financial incentives and aggressive recruitment campaigns to fill its ranks, including offering lucrative contracts to volunteers. The Regiment of Unmanned Systems, Achilles, repelled a Russian assault near the village of Petropavlivka in the Kupiansk area. Russians attempted to storm Ukrainian positions, but were stopped with the destruction of a BTR, a Ural truck, and a van. The 429th Separate Regiment of Unmanned Systems, known as Achilles, exemplifies Ukraine's innovative approach to modern warfare. Originating as a volunteer rifle company on February 24, 2022, within the 128th Battalion of the 112th Territorial Defense Brigade, the unit transitioned to drone operations, providing reconnaissance and artillery support during the Kharkiv counteroffensive. Under the leadership of Commander Yuri Fedorenko, Achilles evolved into one of Ukraine's first strike UAV companies by January 2023. Its effectiveness led to its expansion into a battalion, and eventually, in January 2025, into the 429th Separate Regiment of Unmanned Systems within the Ukrainian ground forces. Operating from fortified bunkers in northeastern Ukraine, the regiment conducts continuous drone missions, utilizing various UAVs to identify and eliminate enemy targets. Notably, the unit has destroyed 4 Russian Pantsir-S air defense systems valued at $56 million. The stench is so bad it sticks in your throat. Report from a Russian soldier about the situation at his position. 5 blown up by mine, corpses everywhere, and nothing else left.
Сегодня у нас еще с ротой 5-200, нахуй. Ехали вот здесь, далеко, на коробке. Коробочка это машина, по-нашему. Ну, любое средство передвижения. Вот, и, короче, уебались на мину, нахуй. В весе там вонище стоит невъебенное. Вот. И уже пока, блядь, вот я вот так вторые сутки уже хожу, блядь, Даш ищу. Где это пизда? Вонище, сука. Уже этот трупный запах, нахуй, по перегору. Пизда. Все, тут кроме трупов, нахуй, нихуя нет. Просто нихуя. В той части лесополки вообще жизни нет. Вот я откидку пробегал.
A victory of justice over pure evil. North Korean military delegation head on the liberation of Kursk region. Lieutenant General Pak Yong-il says it marks a new chapter in the DPRK-Russia combat alliance. More and more North Korean officials openly confirm their role in the war against Ukraine. Trump is bootlicking Putin again. Putin is very smart and cunning. He never intended to end the war. His goal was always to take all the territory. I think we might reach a deal, but there's no guarantee. No moral compass whatsoever. Putin. Sooner or later, Russia's relations with Europe will be restored. Many share our position, but are afraid to speak openly. That's exactly the pattern. Invade, seize land, then negotiate, knowing Europe will eventually reset relations, letting the cycle repeat again. Ukraine and the United States on April 30th signed a long-awaited minerals agreement that establishes a joint investment fund in Ukraine, First Deputy Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko announced, "I am grateful to everyone who worked for the agreement and made it more meaningful. Now the document is such that it can ensure success for both our countries, Ukraine and the United States," Sviridenko said. Sviridenko traveled to Washington April 30th to sign the framework agreement on behalf of Ukraine. She signed the document along with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The signing of the minerals deal follows months of negotiations that at times became contentious. The U.S. and Ukraine were set to sign the deal in late February, but the plan fell apart following the infamous White House argument between President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. President Donald Trump. U.S. officials framed the agreement as a sign of Washington's lasting support for Ukraine. This agreement signals clearly to Russia that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term, Bessent said in a U.S. Treasury Department press release. The deal will not allow any state or person who financed or supplied the Russian war machine to profit from Ukraine's reconstruction, Bessent said. Shortly before the deal was signed, Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal announced the Ukrainian government had approved the agreement. Thanks to this agreement, we will be able to attract significant resources for reconstruction, start economic growth, and receive the latest technologies from partners and a strategic investor in the United States, Shmyhal said. The Reconstruction Investment Fund will be jointly managed by Kiev and Washington in an equal partnership, with both sides contributing to the fund. According to Shmyhal, future military aid from the U.S. can count as contributions to the fund, but prior assistance is not included. The agreement does not provide for any debt obligations, Shmyhal said. Ukraine will retain full control over subsoil, infrastructure, and natural resources, the Prime Minister said. The establishment of the fund will also not interfere with Ukraine's path to membership in the European Union. Sviridenko confirmed these stipulations in a post on social media, adding that Ukraine's state-owned businesses such as Energoatom and Ukernafta would retain state ownership and that the agreement abides by Ukraine's constitution. The fund will exclusively be supplied with revenues from newly issued licenses, Sviridenko said. We are talking about 50% of the funds from new licenses for projects in the field of critical materials and oil and gas that will go to the budget after the fund is created, she wrote. Revenues from projects already launched or budgeted revenues are not included in the fund. The agreement refers to further strategic cooperation. The fund's income and contributions will not be taxed in Ukraine or the U.S., she added. As part of the agreement, the U.S. will help attract additional investments and technologies to Ukraine, Sviridenko said. According to the Washington Post, which reviewed the latest version of the deal, the agreement provides no concrete security guarantees to Ukraine. It instead affirms a long-term strategic alignment between the two nations and pledges U.S. support for Ukraine's security, prosperity, reconstruction, and integration into global economic frameworks. The deal also includes no mention of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the WP reported. U.S. officials have previously suggested taking control of the facility as part of a future peace deal. Shmyhal earlier on April 30th said the framework agreement, once signed, would be submitted to the Verkhovna Rada for ratification. The deal reportedly faced a last-minute setback on April 30th, as disagreements over final terms raised doubts about whether the deal would be signed, according to the Financial Times.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.